Under the shade of an ancient oak tree, where the wind whispered stories from the past and the earth held the memory of countless generations, a young woman named Isabel sat trembling, her hands resting protectively over her stomach. She was no more than 20, yet her eyes carried the weight of centuries of sorrow. The world had turned its back on her. Those she had trusted, the ones she called family, the ones she called friends, had abandoned her the moment they discovered her secret. They said her condition was a burden, a shame too heavy to carry. So they left her, alone, beneath that tree, as though discarding her pain would make it vanish. The night was falling fast, and with it came the chill of solitude. The stars began to awaken, piercing the deepening sky, but Isabel's heart was restless. Fear clawed at her chest. She was carrying life inside her, a fragile heartbeat that depended on her strength, yet her own strength was nearly gone. Hunger gnawed at her, her lips were parched, and her body shivered in the cold. She whispered into the silence, her voice breaking, "Please, don't let me be alone. Please don't let my child suffer for my mistakes." What Isabel didn't know was that beyond the tree line, eyes had been watching her, eyes that belonged to a man marked by his people as both fierce and tender. His name was Dakota, a proud Apache warrior whose presence carried the quiet dignity of his ancestors. Dakota had seen many battles, not just against enemies who threatened his tribe, but against the unforgiving hardships of the land itself. He had learned that strength was not only measured in combat, but in the courage to show compassion when others chose cruelty. That evening, while returning from a long journey through the forest, Dakota saw Isabel. At first, he thought she was a spirit, her figure so still, her hair cascading like a dark river over her shoulders. But as he approached, he saw the tears staining her face, the way her hands cradled her stomach as though guarding something precious. He sensed her despair, and though she was a stranger, though she was not of his people, something within him stirred, a call he could not ignore. He knelt beside her, his deep voice gentle, "You are not safe here. The night is cold, and the earth is no place for one who carries new life. Why are you alone?" Isabel flinched at first. She had heard stories of Apaches, fearsome warriors, untamed and merciless. But when she looked into Dakota's eyes, she did not see cruelty. She saw a quiet strength, a kindness that disarmed her fear. Through trembling lips, she confessed, "They left me. They said I was a burden, that no one would want me now. So they abandoned me under this tree." Dakota's jaw tightened, anger flashing briefly across his face, but it was not directed at her. It was directed at the cruelty of those who had cast her aside. He shook his head slowly and said, "A child is never a burden. And you, carrying life, are never alone. I will not leave you." Those words, simple, steady, unshakable, were like a spark of warmth in Isabel's frozen heart. She wanted to believe him, yet doubt lingered. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me," she whispered. Dakota's gaze did not waver. "Because humanity is not measured by blood or tribe, but by how we care for the helpless. To turn my back on you would be to dishonor myself, my people, and the Creator who gave us life. No woman should face her suffering alone." And so, from that night onward, Dakota remained by Isabel's side. He brought her food from the forest, berries, roots, and the meat of rabbits he hunted. He carried water from the nearby stream, ensuring she drank enough for herself and the child. He built a small shelter near the oak tree with branches and hides, protecting her from the wind. At night, he kept watch, making sure no predator came close, not even the shadows of despair. Isabel, still fragile from betrayal, tested his resolve. There were nights when she pushed him away with harsh words, unable to believe someone could truly care. "You don't have to stay," she told him one evening, her eyes brimming with tears. "One day you'll realize I'm nothing but trouble." Dakota simply shook his head. "You are not trouble. You are a mother. And motherhood is the most sacred duty given by the Creator. Your child is not trouble, your child is a blessing." Days turned into weeks, and Isabel's belly grew. With every sunrise, she found herself leaning more on Dakota's presence. His silence was comforting, his strength steady, his actions unwavering. Slowly, she began to heal, not just in body, but in spirit. She realized that kindness, when genuine, expects nothing in return. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Isabel felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Panic surged within her, her time had come. She clutched Takota's arm, fear flashing in her eyes.
It's happening. I can't do this alone.
Takota placed his hand gently on her shoulder.
You are not alone. Breathe, Isabel. Trust yourself, trust the life within you. I am here.
The hours that followed were filled with cries, sweat, and pain, but also with a strength Isabel never knew she possessed. Takota guided her through the birth with calm patience, recalling the teachings of the women in his tribe who had shown him how to aid in such moments. At last, as dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, the cry of a newborn pierced the air. Isabel collapsed in relief, tears streaming down her face as Takota placed the tiny child in her arms. A daughter, small and perfect, her fists clenched as though already prepared to fight for life. Isabel whispered through her sobs, "My baby, my beautiful baby."
Takota looked upon them with reverence. She is strong, like her mother. She will carry your spirit, and she will never know abandonment, not while I draw breath. In that moment, Isabel realized something profound.
This man, who had every reason to walk away, had chosen to stay. He had no obligation, no bond of blood, no gain to pursue, yet he had given her and her child the most precious gift: dignity, hope, and a future. Weeks later, as Isabel recovered, she often asked Takota why he stayed when the world had turned away. His answer never changed. Because kindness is not a debt. It is a choice. And in choosing it, we heal not only others but ourselves. Time passed, and the bond between them deepened. Isabel no longer felt the crushing loneliness that had once threatened to destroy her. She felt the strength of a friend, a protector, perhaps even something more. And Takota, once hardened by the battles of life, found in Isabel and her child a gentleness he had long believed lost to the world. Years later, the oak tree still stood tall, a silent witness to the day despair was turned into hope. Travelers who passed by would sometimes see Isabel, her daughter, and Takota living not in sorrow, but in peace. They had built a life from the ashes of abandonment, proving that family is not always defined by blood, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to stand by another when the world has walked away. And whenever Isabel's daughter asked about the night of her birth, Isabel would point to the oak tree and say, "That is where I was left alone. But it is also where we were found, because one man chose kindness over indifference, and that choice changed everything." The story of Isabel and Takota became a quiet legend among those who heard it, a reminder that the world's cruelty can be undone by a single act of compassion. It echoed through generations, carried by the wind through the branches of the oak, whispering to all who paused to listen. You are never truly alone, so long as there is kindness in the heart of even one soul willing to stay.